morning and welcome. This is Sunrise Daily, this beautiful 23rd day in the month of November 2022. I almost said 2023. Good morning and welcome.
You know, for a lot of people, the year ends after February 25th, after the elections. So that's when the 2022 year ends. But it's a beautiful Wednesday morning. It's midweek already. Let's serve you breakfast. After all, everybody will get their breakfast. I'm Kayode Okikulu here in Lagos.
Okay. Good morning, guys.
Breakfast coming from. I don't mind being a part of it, though.
Breakfast, you have to be careful how you use that term. You know, when they say you're served breakfast, it's not exactly...
Well, the breakfast I know is the one that goes into your digestive system.
Okay.
And does what it needs to do.
It had better be
regularly.
That one, because you remember only recently the vice president was singing, last, don't cast... everybody could chop breakfast.
Oh dear.
Good morning and welcome to Sunrise Daily from here in Abuja. My name is Maokwe Ogun-Yusuf.
Good morning, I'm Chamberlain. And we're picking up on the education sector. We know how very vital that is. I mean, the former US president did say when they asked him about his plan, his focus, his main objective, he said education, education, education. So that couldn't be underestimated, that couldn't be underscored a lot more. And it's a lot more challenging and concerning here because, I mean, much as we all know what we're going through in terms of what we need to do, how we need to keep students in schools, how we need to ensure the quality of education is also up there, how we also need to ensure that we pay the right attention to professionals who themselves have gone through the system such that you'll encourage a lot more people to get in there. How we're trying to do or come up with several programs to keep students in school, and then the poverty report hits us. But you know, the thing is this. I looked at the current CBN report, which says, and it was just over 3 months. Just 3 months. And the CBN's report said, Nigerians spend $221 million paying for education abroad. And we're even paying in hard currency, in foreign currency, to West African schools. That's how terrible it is. And then if you look at several other figures where several people have actually tabulated it, and in the reports that say, from one UNESCO one talked about 11.6 billion on foreign education in 3 years. This was published in 2020. So then CBN's one was published in 2022, May 2022. So it can't underscore that any further than that, how hugely significant the revenue that we lose because we haven't just gotten things right. There are several programs that the country has, from UBEC, several programs from primary, secondary, tertiary, and here we still are grappling with getting things right. Well, that was the summit that held yesterday with the National Assembly. Much as, I mean, it was not exactly pleasant to hear ASU talk about how they had this kind of seminar, this kind of program previously, where the delivers seems to be gathering dust somewhere, and hoping this will not be the same thing. But it's still important that we highlight these things, these challenges that we're facing. This time, hopefully, it will put our money where our mouth is.
Well, Chimling, I was privileged to be at that summit yesterday. I spent a huge part of my day at that summit. The chairman of Channels Television was also invited to also be a panelist there. You also saw, I mean, look at the eminent personalities who were there, you know, to discuss education. You do know that the Speaker of the House of Representatives has had to intervene when we have faced a deadlock, you know, with ASU and the federal government. Well, let me say the executive arm of government, you know, at their negotiations, it looked like they had hit a brick wall, and they were digging in, and you know, the Speaker of the House of Reps, you know, thought it wise to intervene, and he was able to resolve, I mean, get some resolution. And at least we know that ASU is back in, they're back in school, even though the issues have not been fully resolved, especially with the federal government now paying prorated salaries. And, you know, ASU and its members do feel very insulted by that. I mean, you ought to have heard in the room yesterday the the lecturers who spoke, a lot of them, you know, shared in no uncertain terms the angst that they felt towards the federal government and how it has treated the education sector. But it's a good thing that, I mean, because the speaker has also gone beyond that and said, let us start a conversation. His opening speech was very remarkable. I mean, he made reference to the fact that a nation's assets are not the, you know, the mineral resources that it has. It is its human resource. And that I think that former President Obasanjo, you know, also emphasized that. He said, he said, taken from the speaker's speech, he said that if any leader doesn't realize that, then that leader is a compound fool. Those are pretty strong terms. But so far, you have to ask, how have we prioritized our education? In general, President Obasanjo spoke generally about education and where we are at the primary and secondary level. He was more particular, even though the summit was on tertiary education, he was more particular about the primary and secondary level and how we haven't really paid attention to that particular level and how it is a disaster waiting to happen, especially when you look at our population growth. The fact that also 133 million are said to be living in abject or are multidimensionally poor. And when you think about the fact that education is what equips you to be a good citizen, he says what we have done is that we have disempowered these people from being active citizens, able to contribute their quota to nation building. So when you think about the dimensions and what education truly means in the life of an individual, you and I would not be here, but for the fact that we're educated, who will we be? We'll be nobodies. So it is important. He was asking, who is looking at these questions? To look at our population growth vis-a-vis what we're investing in it and what we hope that our, you know, where our population will be. You know, say in the year 2050, for instance. These are very deep questions. I know, again, at the, you know, the summit, we're trying to bring it back to tertiary education. But I think what was important and what they were able to spark yesterday is what we need to do about and where we need to start in terms of a conversation. There needs to be deep conversations. Thankfully, they say that by the time they're done, they're going to have an outcome. They're going to be telling the press about, you know, having a press release, etc., and telling the press what was discussed yesterday. It's a two-day summit, so it's going to still continue today. And the outcomes from that, papers were asked. They asked for presentation of papers way before now. So lots of submissions came in. They said from different parts of the world. You know, a lot of Nigerians were really interested about what we need to do about our education. You know, and how we can move forward in not just tertiary education, but education at all levels. So let us see what comes out of that. My own fear is that I hope that this will not be just some talk shop and that this will not be something that when you're done in the 9th Assembly, it will be somewhere gathering dust. That concern was raised. The member of the House was saying that, well, they're hoping that it will be something like the PIB, where when the 8th Assembly was done, there was still a document which the 9th Assembly could immediately run with rather than start from scratch. So if they're committed to doing that, hopefully it will not be that after elections, another administration will come in and they will think, well, that was that administration. This one will do our own thing. I hope that everybody gets to understand that education should be something that is a continuum and that it's not something that we should just pay lip service to. And we need to do something urgently about, you know, educating the mass of our people, of our young people as well, who are now currently in tertiary education systems, and not just universities, but also the monotechnics, the technical colleges, etc., and ensuring that these people are able to contribute usefully their quota to Nigeria. Gentlemen.
You wonder what more you can add to that. Mark, speaking passionately as, will I say, an eyewitness in that. She was literally part of that from start to finish. Too. Oh, exactly, and a parent. And I love when we compare, you know, natural resources with human capital or human resources. I love it when we talk about it on paper. But in reality, Do we see them as the same? I just remember yesterday, I mean, incidentally, they happened simultaneously, sort of, at that Kolmani integrated, the launch of it, where the president and other dignitaries were there. And the president was talking about how we've been able to attract $3 billion for that project, essentially. And he was saying that at a time where there's a crunch, people are not exactly looking into fossil fuel and all of that. But we're able to attract $3 billion to that project, essentially investment. But when you come to our education sector, where we actually tap and exploit or develop human capital, how much investment have we been able to attract? By the way, the Kolmani is just, I mean, cuts across, what, 2 states. It's not even the whole Nigeria. But when you talk about the whole Nigerian education sector, how much have we been able to attract investment or invest properly in that sector? So on paper, I mean, in speeches, we talk about the fact that our most important resource is not, you know, natural resource, it is human resource. But really, are we treating it that way? Just picture if we had that sort of investment in our education sector. Just picture it. I mean, I remember my time in school with the much we had in terms of investment in our university, our tertiary education. I remember how much, you know, fun I had in court, how much I enjoyed going to school. Yes, the bathrooms and, you know, others didn't look good. You usually shut your eyes just to, you know, you just run through, just breeze through, and then you go to classes, you know, you get to meet brilliant minds and all of that. It was a beautiful experience for me, really. And I'm saying with the little we had invested in education at that point, I hate to imagine what it is. I'm talking about public university, not private. I hate to imagine what it is right now with this impasse. I know people that just entered for their masters in 2018, 2019, and they're not done till today. I mean, if you were a BSc, the person was telling me for BSc, the person had actually finished within this space, you know, in spite of the fact that there were issues at that point. So imagine if we actually invested that much in our education sector. It's a no-brainer. I don't want to add to it, but I just want to say when we make those comparisons on paper, let's actually move ahead. Let's open this industry or this sector to better investment. Imagine $3 billion.
I think it only speaks to one thing: priorities. How important is it to us? I mean, currently, what we are talking about here, we've been talking about revamping the education sector for, at the very least, if memory serves me right, 3 decades. 3 decades. Since 3 decades? Since 1992 or thereabout. Yeah, we've been talking about, you know, revamping the education sector. But this same, you know, Kolmani project that you talked about, when did we start talking about it? Okay, and we were able to attract $3 billion to it. So that speaks to priority. But, you know, there's something that Mark talked about. Even though we are talking about tertiary education, the former president Obasanjo went and spoke about the lower levels. But the lower levels were supposed to feed 3 different tiers of tertiary education, which is academic, polytechnic, and technical education. Now, how significant is that? At a time where HND holders are said to be lower than BSc holders, it's only natural that if you both spent about the same time in, you know, the tertiary education, you went to uni, I went to polytechnic, and then I'm one level lower than you. It's only natural for me to say, okay, I'm not going to go to polytechnic again. I'm going to go to the university because it seems that the university teachers, students are better regarded in school. So. It's a whole wide conversation that we needed to have. And someone spoke about the fact that at the conference, Amakwe, thank you for the yeoman job you did there. Someone spoke at that conference talking about the laws, that we need to look at all the laws. I think it was, you know, the Minister of Works and Housing, talking about the need for us to look at all the laws that set up the entire spectrum of our university system and all of that. So the question is, who will bear the cards? Who will take the lead? Who will hold the gauntlet and ensure that these things are done? What is the timeline? In another 10 years, 20 years from now, where will the ivory towers be? Where the economic policies that are supposed to shape us as a nation, where they're supposed to come from? Where will the ivory towers be in 10 years, 20 years from now? If you can answer that question, then we're starting. Guys.
Okay, well, that is something. Okay. All right, guys, that's something that definitely we need to pay a lot of attention to moving forward. But we'll take a moment and we're back. We'll be back with you with the dailies in just a moment. Don't go away. Leadership newspaper today, and what they've got on the front page is about 2023 presidency, and there you see Christian leaders quiz Atiku, Obi, Adebayo over plans for Nigeria. Those are important questions that we need to ask, as a matter of fact, moving forward. Everyone needs to ask that question. Ask questions of them any time of the day it's allowed. And then look at the writer. We won't endorse any presidential candidate, says Khan. And then you get to see the other writer here saying, give us a chance, we will make Nigeria work again. PDP, LP, flag bearers. I will recharge Lake Chad if elected president, ascribed to Tinubu. So you have snippet of what they intend to do if elected for that forthcoming big elections. And so that's what you see there. Some sort of advisory here, which is above that lead story. Arms, hard drugs imported into Nigeria ahead of 2023 polls, Al-Mustafa warns. Well, we've always had this kind of scenario time, and almost whenever there's got to be, this major election. So it's up to us, the relevant security agencies, to focus properly and do the right things. I think it's going to be, who knows, a very interesting day today. Buhari unveils redesigned Naira notes today. CBN raises interest rates.
Are you looking forward to that?
Interest rates raising? No, but
no, not the interest rates raising. Certainly not. That has already been raised anyway. I'm talking about the redesign, Chamberlain.
I know. Well, yeah, of course, we're looking forward to it because it's going to happen anyway. So we'd like to see it. And then, just get on with it. Let's see how far that goes. That's leadership this morning.
Well, leadership, New Telegraph. Why? See how you're getting in my mouth this morning. New Telegraph has this. Salmat, 3 others versus electoral body. Court refuses to order INEC to resume voter registration. So yesterday this story broke, but what Nigerians saw was that the court had ordered INEC to resume voter registration. Turns out that was a misleading headline. The court actually refused to order INEC to resume voter registration. Says going by date of verdict, INEC will have just few days to 90 days before polls. So the court is seeing reason with INEC. There are numerous threats to 2023 elections, says Al-Mustafa. Fake news threatening polls. That's according to the federal government. That was certainly one fake news. Well, you'll see details on pages 2 and 3 of New Telegraph newspapers. You also have this. We've concluded investigations into Kuje prison attack. That's according to the federal government. It says report on Buhari's desk. NIS to issue 1.8 million passports before year end. It's on page 3 of the paper. You also see that story, President Buhari to unveil redesigned Naira notes today. CBN banks loans to government rise to 63.87% to 22.68 trillion Naira. That's something that the government was trying to avoid, and that the private sector should be benefiting more from the loans that the banks are giving. But looks like somehow government is still crowding out the private sector, loans to the private sector. And some people might say that it's deliberate by the banks themselves. They'd rather give government money than give some private sector whom they're not sure. At least government, there's always a plan to ensure that you get your money back. And in any case, government can shut them down for being illiquid if it is government that they are owing, or that is owing them, so to speak. So page 4 is where you get details. A number of other stories they have there. I'll leave you to do that yourself. But let's leave it there for New Telegraph this morning.
Well, the Guardian newspaper leads with the Kolmani story, saying oil drilling begins in Gombe, Bauchi with 1 billion barrels of oil and 500 billion cubic feet of gas. Well, yeah, it's expected that it should hold up to that. So that's the big one, talking about how much we are focusing on our natural resources. I mean, imagine what happens when you focus on natural resources and leave the human resources. It's sort of a misnomer, right? But take a look at the writers. Buhari orders NNPC to step up oil search, says Kolmani project attracted $3 billion. Silva Kyari drums support for exploration across inland. Lawan advocates constitutional review for 13% derivation utilization. I think this has also raised that question about, is it fiscal federalism and all of that, saying that, well, with this discovery now, I think everybody should begin to say, well, yeah, we have something, let's negotiate, right? But see, Bauchi Gombe governors pledge support. I'm sorry?
Let's all just be advised.
We should be advised?
Yes, because the history of the records of Niger Delta have not, it's not just the history of it, the current realities.
Well, the state governors are pledging support and conducive environment. And you see this one, I will take project up from Buhari, says Tinubu. So the picture there shows that. And I'll just take one more for you. I know there's a lot of controversy around this redesigned Naira note, but I'm actually excited to see the new Naira. I don't know if it's just me. Let's know what you think. Yes, it's been quite controversial. Well, aren't you excited? Or maybe it's just me, so maybe I'm biased.
No, it's always a beautiful thing. Back, I think it was in the 70s, the first time the 20 Naira note came out. Oh boy. Everyone waited for it with bated breath. It was the biggest at the time.
You know the irony about money, you can't hold on to it forever, right? You have to spend it. So yeah, admire it, but ultimately spend it. Just one more. CBN moves to curb inflation as interest rate jumps to 16.5%. Appears as though the inflation rate just chose to jump itself. The Monetary Policy Committee made that decision. So it's 16.5. Let's see how well that tames inflation. That's the Guardian newspaper for you.
Flip to Daily Trust newspaper. It's also staying in Kolmani for you this morning. Sounds like one of those names in movies, but that's what you have on the front page of the paper today. Kolmani drill attracts 1.33 trillion naira investments, and look at the riders: 1 billion oil barrels, 500 billion cubic feet of gas. Exciting. Natural thing that comes to my mind is, hey, is NLNG going to open shop there? New facility to have refinery, fertilizer plants, more oil discoveries in Anambra, Sokoto, others. Well, Sokoto, interesting, given the
poverty figures.
The poverty figures. Well, let's see how it goes. And right above the nameplate, well, beg your pardon, under the nameplate, I'll implement your demands, Atiku tells CAN leaders. And look at the riders. Hold politicians to their promises. Obi urges Nigerians, we won't be partisan, says CAN president. Race to NAS under the page, at the bottom of the page. Bagudu Aliero in titanic battle for Kebbi Central. And the details on page 31 of the paper. And above that one, while we adopted co-regulation, described to media owners. What that is about, you'll find on page 4 of the Daily Trust newspaper this morning.
Nigeria, and then look at the lead there, the theme, Consolidated Revenue Fund Charge. You get to see 2.2 billion naira approval documents missing, says Justice Ministry. Senate committee orders PermSec to reappear December 1 with document on service-wide vote. That's what's on the front page of This Nigeria this morning. And then they also have this Kolmani scenario at the bottom strip there. Discovery of Kolmani oil gas field in Bauchi, Gombe has broken jinx, ascribed to Buhari. Projects already attracted over $3 billion investment in fossil energy. That's some of the other riders, the headline to see on the front page of This Nigeria.
Well,
okay, understand. Well, that is where we draw the curtains, or we'll end the paper review segment. We will be back with you in just a moment. Stay with us.
For the second time in 1 month, the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, is meeting with heads of media houses and news editors in Abuja to give an update on the preparations for the 2023 general elections. The Director of Voter Education at the Commission, Mr. Festus Okoye, who represented the INEC chairman, gives a highlight of preparations by the Commission, assuring citizens of INEC's readiness for the exercise in February next year.
On the 26th day of February 2022, the Commission rolled out the timetable and schedule of activities for the conduct of the 2023 general election. And in that particular timetable and schedule of activities, we listed 14 critical items that must be accomplished before the election. As of today, the Commission has implemented 9 of those critical items. As a Commission, we are comfortable with the level of our preparations, and the chairman of the Commission has repeatedly assured the nation that never again will scheduled elections in this country be postponed or rescheduled on account of logistics and logistic challenges.
The INEC National Commissioner further gives an update on the collection of permanent voter cards, the use of biometrics, and the transmission of results from the polling units.
The chairman of the Commission, Professor Mahmoud Yakubu, will in the next week or two outline the fine details of the standard operating procedure. The Commission wants to ensure and will ensure the seamless collection of permanent voters' cards by all eligible registrants. We assure all Nigerians that the PVCs of those that registered between the 15th day of January 2022 and July 31st, 2022 will be ready this month. And the chairman will give the exact date for PVC collection to begin. All those that registered within this period, as well as those that carried out transfer and those that apply for replacement, will get their cards as soon as possible.
It's less than 100 days to the 2023 general elections in Nigeria, and the electoral umpire says it plans to hold a series of meetings and trainings for journalists, as well as other critical partners who have a role to play in the forthcoming general elections.
All right, welcome back. Well, yes, indeed, we'll be talking about the continuing voter registration, the decisions from the courts, what was sought, and what is the way forward now. We've got NLB, who is the convener, Situation Room, and also country director for Action Aid. Good morning. Thank you for coming on this morning.
Good morning, and thank you for inviting me.
And we also do have Obo Efana, who is the resident electoral commissioner for INEC in Edo State. He joins us from our studios in Benin. Good morning, Mr. Efana. Thank you for joining us today on the program as well.
Good morning, and thanks for having me.
All right, let's start. Concerning this decision. It was. I mean, people viewed it differently. Initially, they thought, okay, so if this was the case when they thought that the court had given what was reported out there, asking INEC to go ahead with it, but the clarity came much later. The court couldn't grant the third relief sought, saying it would just be very few days to, and it would disrupt the processes, which INEC has said, look, the reasons why we stopped it was to ensure that we're able to process the details that we have and people can collect them. So how do you, or how does civil society actually view this decision by the courts?
I think there's a popular saying that says justice delayed, justice denied. And so if you have waited this long to make a pronouncement, when it's almost the deadline as given by the law, by the Electoral Act, which says not later than 90 days to the election, and we're just about 94 days to the election, and you are giving a judgment today, when will INEC mobilize? But I think we need to understand the fact that the Civil Society Situation Room pressured the government at the end of the time for the continuous voter registration. The continuous voter registration was started in June. Online portal was opened on June 28, 2021. And it lasted for, it went into July. It was on July 26th that they now physically started the registration. And that lasted for a quarter, which ended at the end of September. And then, they opened up for 3 quarters, which ended on the 30th of June, 2022. But when it ended, because of pressure, again, everybody was making calls because of a new surge on people on registration. They extended the deadline to the end of July this year. We were all still feeling that INEC ought to open up because it's like people woke up because of some of the elections, the off-cycle elections that happened, and now people are learning to believe that the system is working, that the beavers is working, and so they went forward. You know, we even had a particular time when Tafawa Balewa Square was filled up because people wanted to register. And we felt the interest generated there, INEC should look at it as something they should benefit from. You know, there is a trust that they are being generated, you know, which is kudos to INEC. But they had to close it then because they said at the time they were closing it, they had more than 95 million registered voters. And they needed to close their books and do some sanity because they have to go back and do the display of the voters register, which is commanded again by law. And so if you are asking them to go now and do registration, when are they going to display the voter registration? So it's important for us to look at the Electoral Act and see what happens, because it's an impossibility at the moment to say, INEC, go back. But I think there could be other systems later as we improve the process to make sure that people can walk in and do their registration and go back home, and not the kind of stress that people went into.
All right, Mr. Farr, let's bring you in now, because it turns out that in spite of perhaps the previous narrative or explanation, if you will, that INEC gave, lots of people were still not satisfied, hence the reason to approach the court in the first place. But now that this has come forth in terms of the court not being able to grant it, lots of people still having mixed feelings about it. Could you explain to us then, because the law is there, what would you consider as the missing link concerning why many still feel differently about how you're going about this CVR?
Thank you very much. I think that people need to have the right information. They need to understand what the law says. The law says clearly that the registration of voters must end not later than 90 days before the election. It means that when you say not later than 90 days before the election, it means you can end it before that time. And so we had to stop it at a point because, just like my sister Enobia said, we needed time to clean up the register. We needed to do to cross-check that people were not registering more than once. And we also showed, by the time we finished that exercise, that a few persons registered more than once, and we needed to remove those from the register, so that by the time we are ready for the election, we have a clean register for the election, and we would also have been able to produce the cards for people to use for the election. So I think that when we stopped in July, it was to give us ample opportunity to get the cards ready for people to collect and vote at the election. Just like Ines said, this process started in June and then July of 2021. And there was one whole year for anyone who was interested to register to do so. And we also know that a lot of people had previously registered. All they needed to do was to do a transfer or update their information, which is what many people did. We now have about 95 million registered voters, up from 84 million from the last election. So I think that we have given people ample opportunity to register. And the truth is that even if we were to say that we will continue registering until the day before the election, you will still have people who will come on election day and say that, give you reasons why they couldn't register all this while, and demand that it should be registered on election day to be able to vote. We just had to rule the line at some point, be able to get all our processes in place.
I'm just thinking. Looking at how what Madam Ineobi emphasized is the issue of trust. The fact that what they were hoping that INEC would take as the lessons from the surge of people coming to register, especially after the off-cycle elections, was the fact that a lot of people were now placing their trust on INEC and seeing the reason why they should be registering to vote. How did INEC process that, the surge which they witnessed, especially towards the end of the closure of registration?
Oh yes, we expanded the locations that the registrations were carried out, and we actually registered more people that time. We brought in more facilities, more equipment, and more personnel to get that done. And yes, we are grateful that there was that surge. And like you said, it was as a result of the confidence in the conduct of INEC in recent elections. And we've always been saying that we improve by the day. The truth of it is that if you look at the elections conducted by INEC over the years, you want to say in the last 10 years or in the last 20 years, it's been improving by the day. And so we expected that people will take advantage of this when we started the registration process in June and July of 2021. At some point in some of the states, we were issuing the figures of registration on a daily basis. I remember when I was in my previous posting, we were releasing the figures on a daily basis, showing registration figures, local government by local government, and also engaging stakeholders in those places to know where they needed to go and register. There were some local government areas that had fewer people turn up there to register. We had more people in the urban areas. And of course, we can understand because of the number of people in those areas. But we tried our best to expand and ensure that as many people as wanted to register and took advantage of the opening during that period were able to register.
It's supposed to be the display of voter register, and then people are supposed to be taking a look at the voter register. They can take a look at it online, and I imagine also that they should be able to go to their polling units right now. Is the register displayed in the polling unit of the different voters?
The registers were displayed at the wards. There are more than 8,000 wards across the country for a period of 1 week. And we also had them online for people to look at and make claims and objections. But for this week, starting from Saturday, we now display at the local government offices of INEC. So people have been coming right from when we were at the ward level to look at it. And people were also doing so online to check that the information were correct. And if they weren't correct, they made claims. And if they also found registration that ought not to be on our system, they also were able to make objections to that. And so we've received quite a handful of that, and we are dealing with them administratively.
It's important to note that. And I mean, serving as the resident electoral commissioner, to be interesting to know just what interest people have shown in that particular process. And I'm wondering, has the surge been like how you would have expected? Are you seeing a lot of people? Are people really aware of the fact that they're supposed to be viewing the registration of the voters register at the ward level, or is it just a handful of people who are aware? I don't know if you're able to assess that.
I went around some of the locations here in my state when it was at the ward level, and I saw that quite a number of people were there. And what I also found out in those wards was that representatives of many political parties were also there. Community leaders were also there. They were able to mobilize their people to come and view. And people were also making calls to people because they had seen the registers and told them that, okay, I've seen your name on it, you don't need to bother. Or some people, they asked them to come and verify that their names were there. And it was also interesting that a few persons came and told us, identified names of persons on the list who are dead, so that we can do the needful to remove the names.
Madam Eniobe, let me ask you about this voter registration display, voters register display. We do know that the civil society, played a huge role in terms of the awareness people had in getting registered. And even at some point, they were helping to organize voting points, or will I say registration points for voters to make it easier, to ensure that there was access for both INEC and also those who were interested in registering. But right now, in terms of the display, how involved is civil society or one in helping to ensure that people are aware of the fact that they need to go and view the voter registration, or how involved is civil society as well monitoring the level of engagement that people are having with the voter register?
We are, the civil society organizations are mobilizing their people to go and do the viewing. But what we wanted was, and as commanded, should be the polling units. Registration, the display of the voters register should be at the polling units because they are closer to the people. When it is at the ward level, sometimes, but if without a high level of civic education or awareness about what is going on, not many people will know, because people are not just sitting around and waiting for INEC, to look at the register. Some people don't have the information. And so it's important that we mobilize people as much as we can. There has to be a lot of, mobilization by INEC itself. And that's why the role of the National Orientation Agency is missing. In terms of civic education, they are the ones in charge. And so there has to be a collaboration between the agencies, because it's important to energize more people. Not everybody have television. A lot of people are on radio. Not many of them are also on radio. And so to reach out to people, to be able to come. And that's what we worry about, the time left to even collect the PVCs, those who have the new registrants, how they collect the PVCs. So we are much, more worried about the time left before, the election, and we have to all get ready. So we are even holding a stakeholders meeting with INEC today. That's the civil society situation room on, the dialogue towards the election, the readiness of INEC, and to engage further and to clear some of the things that we feel. So there is a lot of mobilization going on. But civil society is not government. There are arms that are meant to do some of the things they do. The media is doing a great job, and so well done. I know you have followed all of these things through. And so, there's a lot more that we can do to make sure that people are aware.
Yeah, people expect so much of INEC, actually, because after, I keep highlighting this, after all that resource allocations and improved budgetary allocation, there has to be a lot of improvements, huge ones. But let's bring in our colleagues from Lagos. They've got questions for both of you. Go ahead, guys.
Thank you, Chamberlain. Madam, let me begin with you. You began by, giving us the timeline of how the process had been before INEC had to suspend the process, the voter registration exercise earlier on. And you said that you noted that, there was a surge at some point, and you believe it was something good that should have been milked or taken advantage of by every one of us in the system. The question then is, what else or what more could have been done that wasn't done, and what should be done now in order to encourage people to do what INEC is asking, which is helping to mop up or clean up the voter register? What are the things that people are expected to do to help INEC clean up the voter register, so to speak? Because, of course, the allegations making the rounds about underage voters already on the register and all of that. So if INEC or even you in the civil society couldn't sufficiently mobilize people to do the needful as and when due. How do we ensure that that is done now? What do we need to do to encourage people to get going about this in order for us to have the most credible election ever?
Thank you very much. We are expecting so much from INEC. Who is INEC? We need to look at who is INEC. INEC is a commission, and it's made up of Nigerians as staff of the commission, including the chairman. What is the level, the quality of each citizen needs to be looked at. Because we are all together. If at every level that we are, everyone needs to stand upright for Nigeria, from the perspective of where you are and from what you do. Even the INEC staff. You know, when you are looking at the underage voters that are now being, looked at, those are INEC staff, and I know that in the past, where INEC staff have done something wrong and they are caught, there are sanctions that are meted to them. And so what we are having here now, if at this point, you are having a court judgment that says, go back to CVR, and start registering again, I think it's a distraction. But though the law must have its way to make the pronouncement, but we are almost down the line before they prepare themselves. They haven't even received the court judgment, which means this is a complete distraction again. But not that we are happy. I think there's one statement, that was made earlier, that people have started believing in INEC again. A lot of people weren't voting before because they feel their votes have been counted already. But the days for ballot snatching is over, and people are getting to know that. People have been sensitized. And the fact that people are now believing in the system is something that we have to celebrate. And that's why people want to vote. And so, unfortunately, the time everybody started gingering towards, and I think that has to do with some of the things that happened during the primaries. The primaries for political parties that were dollarized, not even with Naira, but the kind of corruption that happened, and nobody was arrested. We heard of corruption, but nobody was arrested. You could feel it, you could smell it, but nobody was arrested. And so I think the young people woke up the next morning to say, look, this country belongs to us. And when you have a population of young people, more than 62% of the population, if they wake up and they get it right, if they get the right knowledge and the high tech that is now, the young people will choose the people that will come on board.
Madam,
and so I think we have to continuously work.
I think the question that I'm asking is actually in the mobilization, in getting people to be interested on time. These things happen, quite frequently when government or any ministry, department, or agency comes up with an idea. For instance, this issue of voter registration isn't the only one we had a challenge with. You remember, of course, the time that government also talked about people registering, for their national identity number and all of that. That wasn't done for a very, very long time until there was an ultimatum. Now we have another ultimatum on our hands. There is a time that INEC is going to have to stop the display of the voter register, and then other things on the timeline of INEC will continue. So I'm just asking and wondering how you think we can mobilize our people to do the needful on time so that we do not have another pressure on our hands or a surge, as you put it earlier.
I think that is why the civil society organizations are mobilizing. And that includes, there's a lot of work that is being done by the media. There's a lot of work that was being done, in different environments. But INEC voter registration section also have a duty to educate Nigerians. But again, that's why I mentioned the National Orientation Agency, that we need to get to the people. When I was growing up, we had this big van by the Ministry of Information that when they want to get to any corner of Nigeria, they had these big Land Rovers, that had big tires that can go to any corner, any place they want to go. But are they doing that now? We have representation in the 774 local governments, and there are political scientists that are manning those positions. They can't go to that level. You know, the civil society organizations, we try so hard. We mobilize, we write proposals, you know, pleading for money so that we can go out to different corners. And some of the development partners, you know, a lot of them, they are doing a lot of work. We have been working in collaboration with so many, with the EU, with FCDO, with, you know, with different, you know, organizations, Global Affairs Canada, a host of organizations, development partners that civil society, they are trying. But we are not government. We will continue to try. We'll try harder. And we always, you know, talk to the authorities. And that's why we are having a meeting today with INEC again to further engage, to look at the strategies that we have in place, to reach out to the voters. You know, I remember when we were having Oshu election, you know, some of the, you know, the collection of the PVCs was taken to the ward level. You know, at a point it was at the local government level, but we had to, you know, plead with them to go back to, you know, the ward levels, because the poverty in Nigeria now, when we are receiving, you know, even the current figure, which is not too current, that 133 million Nigerians are living below the poverty line. And then we have 95 million registrants now. For them to get to collect, you know, not everybody, of course, more than about 10 million, you know, voter cards, or about 12 million, will be collected. But how many of them have access? How many of them can afford to go to the local government headquarters and ward level? So all of these processes we're engaging and we're monitoring, and we are hoping that we can get, you know, credible elections. The security agencies are also called to do their duties, to stand upright for Nigeria, you know, because there is a lot that is going on, you know, within the security, or, you know, they have showed improvement. We hope they improve just like INEC has improved. We hope that INEC will also keep watch on their own, you know, staff, and make sure that anybody who is found corrupted, because the issue of corruption is down, and we need to have sanctions that can challenge people.
Well, Mr. Efanga,
so the struggle continues.
Yes. Well, let me ask Mr. Efanga, from your experience as the rec in Edo State, you may want to respond to one or two things that Madam Obi said earlier, you know, in her response to that question, and you perhaps want to also take up that question on whether or not INEC is overwhelmed in the job of voter mobilization, because now there is an expectation of INEC from Nigerians to help, as to use the word you use, clean up the voter register. The question is, how is INEC getting that done to mobilize people to be a part of that process of helping INEC to clean up the voter register so that the election of 2023 can be credible?
Okay, thank you. I think the starting point is for us to agree that the election is a huge project of Nigerians and for Nigerians. And every one of us as Nigerians sitting in different locations are involved in this. There's a responsibility expected of those who want to vote to come out and register when it's time for them to register, to come and check their names, to come and pick their voters' cards when it's ready. There's also responsibility on the media, what you're doing, giving us an opportunity to talk to the people. And there's also responsibility on security agencies, there's responsibility on INEC officials. The point is that all of us involved in this process are Nigerians. And our attitude will reflect on the quality of election at every level. Like I tell people, election is a reflection of the kind and quality of people you have in any society. So if people don't show enough interest in all the processes, then it would not be as successful as we want it to be. You've talked about our involvement in mobilizing citizens and getting them involved in this process. We've been doing this over the years. We've been doing this during this continuous voter registration. We're doing this. We're going to the local government areas. We were going to the wards. We were engaging with different stakeholders at different levels. We were engaging with the religious bodies. We were engaging with the traditional institutions and the media, every segment of the society in getting them involved. I am sure that nobody would say at this stage in Nigeria that they are not aware of the key issues about the election, the dates of the elections, what we are doing now, that people are collecting the voters' cards right now. The remaining voters' cards for those who registered or did the transfers this year would be ready in the next few weeks, and people will also be able to collect them. And like we always do, collection will continue until very close to the election. I think over the years, people even collect the voters' card even on the week of the election. So we are doing a lot of things. We expect people, wherever they sit in the electoral process, to do the right thing. So Madam INEC talked about what happened during the party primaries and how some people were dissatisfied, the citizens were dissatisfied, and now that also bolstered them to want to participate more in the election, and so more people were coming to register. All this is a reflection of the attitude of us as Nigerian citizens towards the election project. And on a part of INEC, we are doing all we can to ensure that everybody who wants to vote, given a fair chance to vote, we give that with the registration, and the voters' cards will also be available for them to pick up.
Well, Mr. Fanga, still more issues to raise, really. Election is big, indeed, bedrock of our democracy. You know, questions about the upload of results, INEC server, the IREV, questions about possible compromise on what INEC is doing. And don't forget the issues of underage voters that have been put out there. So we'll go to break now. And when we return, we'll take on these issues. So please stay with us. Welcome back to the program. Let's continue our conversation. We still have Madam NLB in our Abuja studio, as well as Mr. Oboy Fanga, who joins us from our Benin studio as well. Mr. Fanga, before that break, I want to take you up on some issues. So let's try to take them as we can, as much as we can. And I'll start with, a question was raised. I'd like you to quickly respond to it, that how easy or difficult is it for INEC to move PVC collections to the ward level such that it's easier for people? Or some even say maybe do it by courier. I mean, some people may not have that time or that access. I mean, if they fulfill the right, kind of requirements. So how hard is it? And they will pay for it, by the way, to have it delivered to them at their workplace or at their house. How hard, or do I say how easy, is it to do that? Just quickly on that one.
Let me just say that none of our services is paid for by the beneficiaries. So we don't expect the voters, the registered voters, to pay to collect their voters' cards. And so we would not put the cost on them by sending by courier. And also, you need to collect your card personally. We do not yet have a system of postal service in this country that you can trust with that, such that people will accept that they receive their cards personally. We don't want to run into situations where people said their cards were not delivered by the delivery agency or that some other person collected on their behalf, because you must collect by yourself. That is why we take it sometimes to the wards. And right now it's at the local government level. We also take them to the wards. Sometimes when we had the display of the preliminary voters list in the wards, we actually had the cards there for people to collect. And as we go towards the election, we'll be doing more of that. Just like when we were doing the registration, we went around the wards to do the registration at some point. We will still do that. And if people say they are too busy to come and pick their cards, eventually they will still have to come to those areas to pick their cards or to vote in the election. So it's just to prioritize. But like I said, as we go closer to the elections, we'll be taking the cards closer to the people. It is also about the cost in terms of the personnel need and also the security you need at those locations. We don't want situations people will say that the personnel who went with the cards were overpowered or by some hoodlums. We don't want that to happen.
Right, for voting.
I assure you that take all the steps to ensure that people collect their cards in good enough time.
Okay, you know, for voting, there's always the no movement, the holiday, and all of that. So people naturally, whether they like it or not, wouldn't go to work. But let's talk about this major one. And I know you've touched on it. You know, you touched on it earlier on. Would like you to elaborate on it. And that's, you know, when people notice perhaps someone who is deceased on the voter register, or someone who is clearly underage. You were touching on it earlier, but just help Nigerians understand, because you know the feeling they have is that INEC is asking for help. Nigerians should help to clean up that register, but they need to be armed with the steps, what they need to do to ensure that they help INEC and ensure that they're also maybe safe and protected in that process. The point where people have to come forward for objections, maybe you notice online that this person is clearly maybe 5 years old or 10 years old, and this person is on the voter register. And it appears as though those people who object have to be physically present to raise those objections. And I'm talking, imagine if there are even millions of people on the register that are underage. So what's the process? I hope it's not tedious as it is painted.
No, it's not tedious. You have the opportunity to do it physically or online. So if, for instance, you go online and see someone you know who is not qualified to be on the voters register, maybe because the person is not up to 18 years of age and is not in Nigeria, or is not in Nigeria, then you can raise that objection and provide the evidence that would show, for instance, that the person is not in Nigeria, or if it's underage, then we will also try to verify. But let me also mention this. The list that we are displaying is a list of persons who have registered to vote right from when we started the electronic voters registration in 2010, 2011. So for instance, if somebody had registered in 2011 and supplied his or her photograph at that point and has not done any other thing about the registration, for instance, the person has not had cause to take a new picture, what you will have displayed there is the information at the time the person registered. So for instance, somebody may have registered in 2011. It is possible, I need to mention this, it is possible that there were people who registered at that time, 2010, 2011, who were underage at that time. And so even the pictures that were taken at that time, where you would see clearly that these persons are underage. It does not necessarily mean that the picture you see at that time that is still on our register is of the person as the person is now. We admit that over time we've had underage persons registered to vote and perhaps have actually voted in the past before we improved on our systems. But it is no longer possible for someone who is underage to register now without the collaboration of so many persons, including the officials who registered, or maybe they were threatened.
Mr. Fanga, just to be clear, pardon me, just to be clear, so you're saying that, yes, for those people who registered, or people who registered them, yes, a crime was committed if it was 2010, 2011, but by virtue of time, those who were maybe 10 years old at that time or less, they would have been, I mean, at the right age now. So you're saying that nullifies the infraction or the crime that was committed at that time. But also, I'd like you to speak to this particularly. So what is the process of, you know, raising the objections and following it through and ensuring that, you know, those who are clearly underage, even right now, are weeded out? So what is the process? Because it's still not clear. So if I do it online, raise objection online, would I have to come physically? Would you call the person who was registered, ask them to provide some sort of identification? How does it work so Nigerians can understand, please?
Well, okay, so yes, if you do it online, you would make an objection as to why the person is on the voters list, and you will give your reason for that the person is underage or the person is not a Nigerian. Okay, those are basically the reasons that you would place for someone, or the person is dead, for the person not to still be on the voters register, and will receive that. Now, there is opportunity for this to be reviewed. So if you have sent us the evidence, and then we would also have to notify the person to come forward and prove otherwise. And of course, at that point, you can actually see this person is actually of age and you would allow it then. But if there are officers at that level are satisfied that in this person should not be on the voters register, then they will remove them. But let's also be careful that we don't run into a situation where people can deliberately sit down and make claims that objections that certain persons shouldn't be on the register. We would not just act simply because somebody has made an objection. We'll have to be satisfied.
Okay, so you're saying, just to be clear, pardon me, so you're saying that if I make an objection, I have to present something like a proof. For example, if I am saying that I know this person is underage, are you saying that I have to maybe provide the person's birth certificate or some sort of identification or something that shows that the person is underage? So the burden of proof is on me. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, definitely. It's on the person who makes the objection that this person shouldn't be the voters register.
So that would be difficult then, right?
Yeah, I can imagine that would be difficult in many instances. But there are some cases that would be so clear that even it is possible for us to remove this person. So for instance, if our attention is drawn to the fact that somebody is dead, and maybe the person is somebody that is well known also, we wouldn't need that you must bring the death certificate of that person. But for some of the persons who are telling us about persons who are dead, it could be their family members who would now us evidence that it's dead. But I think that we need to be careful that in trying to solve a problem, we do not create another level of problem of people trying to deliberately disenfranchise others.
Well, there are some other observations that have been raised about, but this time is with the result viewing portal. And so we've got Mr. Kevin Fineface, who is a cybersecurity analyst, to take us through how some of the concerns that may arise from that result viewing portal. Good morning, and thank you for having us.
Morning, my pleasure,
today on the program. Well, let's go right into it, because we may be out of time before we know it. Now, that viewing portal itself, because there's been that controversy as to, can this be compromised? Are we going to be viewing those results simultaneously as it's being posted? So what are your observations at the moment?
Well, first, we need to give the current INEC chairman and his team, some commendation for doing a good job. I think I should say from Jega's time, I've been involved in elections since 2005, so I can tell that there's tremendous improvement. Your question you asked about the viewing portal, can it be compromised? No, it can't be compromised in the sense that this is a system that is being owned by the Commission, constantly being monitored and managed by the Commission. In terms of compromise, except you're looking at the fact that will the citizens, the electorate, truly be confident about the result that will be published on the portal, the viewing portal? The answer is no. Why? You know that once the results are collected at the polling units, they're then uploaded into the INEC central server. Now, by what they do, looking at the previous experience in Anambra and the rest of it, what they did simply was that they uploaded, they waited for the RATEX, which is the registered area technicians, to go validate those results before uploading into the viewing portal. That window of uploading is where compromise comes in.
Okay, so let's make it stick with people who are watching. Let's go right into the system.
Yes.
Take a look at that INEC site, right from when you have to log in. So, guys, can we just take a look at that? Because when that comes up, you are supposed to log in with your email
With your email address. It sends you a code. You use the code.
This stage is right after
the registration.
When you get into the system,
yes,
isn't it?
You go to the governorship election results of Anambra. Let's use Anambra as a case study, yeah? You click on the governorship, yes? Okay, so you go to Idemili North, which is where I would need to, then Idemili North, you have Abatete. You click on Abatete Ward.
Abatete is the second one, I think.
Yes, Abatete Ward. About 36 polling units. Just click on any one of the polling units there. Now, yes, what happened during these elections? once you notice what happened then was that the polling unit results were collected, an announcement was made. Then suddenly this RATEC, some of the, yes.
What stage is this?
This is, I don't have my glasses, but from what I can see,
so
there,
he clicked on he just clicked on any word.
This result you're seeing there were already they are kind of a copy result sheets from EC8A that was used not from the polling units. This was actually, they kept it there to upload it much later, but because some of the polling unit agents, the collation officers, refused to compromise, and that blew the whistle that resulted to INEC coming into the place. Oh, this was wrong, and that's why we had the result we saw that brought about the current governor that's in place.
What do you mean refuse to compromise? Because many people thought that once the returning officer fills the result at the ward level, they paste it, then upload.
They don't upload it immediately. The RATEC and the collation officer goes to the ward for further collation. It's in the process of going to the ward that things happen along the road. And so if results are not immediately uploaded simultaneously, as they do to the server and into the viewing portal, it means that it will be compromised. And so I listened to the national chairman. He said BVAS are going to be used. I listened to Bang, BVAS is going to be used. Yes, BVAS is going to be used. We don't doubt it. But what Nigerians are asking to say is that if you're going to use BVAS, are you going to simultaneously upload the results from the polling unit so as to give authenticity? Because if you're not uploading results simultaneously, it means that you give room for compromise to take place. Now, we know politicians, they have the capacity to compromise at any point in time, to compromise the elections. They will be able to influence. Now, the RATECs are those who are like the mini devils, because they are people that are like the darlings of the politicians. They look for them and want to pay them so much money. If the RATECs don't upload the result immediately to the viewing portal, it means it's going to be compromised.
So you mean that politicians can approach the RATECs,
which they've been doing,
and then ask them to what? Manipulate.
We saw that happen in Anambra. I gave you the statement. I mean, you also reported it in the media the last time this happened in Anambra. We saw what happened, the fight that took place. These people already had results from EC8A and B, and even C already pre-recorded, waiting to upload, scan to upload.
So what, they swap it with the RATECs, and then they upload that version?
Just uploaded that version to want to put it onto the server before it was, because those other guys refused to compromise. The collation officers refused to compromise. I call them patriotic citizens who want to do right, irrespective of the fact that they don't have a permanent job with the commission. They're actually ad hoc staffs who stood their grounds. And that was what brought about the authenticity of result we have that brought the Solido government into place. Without that, we would have actually had the other party as the preferred winner.
But the other question is, if they go ahead and do this, and then at the polling unit or the ward level, the agents have the authentic results, where then do you reconcile it? Okay,
beautiful. If you notice what has always happened in the past, even most recently, at every polling unit you have party agents, you have observers, and you have the monitors to the commission. What has always happened is that immediately after results are collected at the polling unit and they're pasted on the wall, if you notice, there's always a slight difference in the result that is announced at the end of the day. Why is it so? It is a RATEC. The RATECs are those who are responsible by law. If you look at the Electoral Act, Section 64 and 5, subsection 4 and 5, mandating that every result be uploaded into the server, and as such, the viewing portal. Now, what the commission has always done is the fact that, in case there be error, let's wait until we validate the result. The question is that if you have already pasted this result at the polling unit, it means that it's already validated by the agents that are there, by the observers that are there. It's been validated. That's why you pasted the result. Yeah. Now, if you have done that pasting, why are you still waiting for RATEC to validate the result again much later? Why not immediately upload the result to the viewing portal so that Nigerians can view? If those who are not able to go to the polling unit, here's the thing. The commission says the last election, they said they don't want anybody to have mobile phones around, any recording device around. Why, when Nigeria is doing that, Nigeria want to be sure that they can truly observe and have record evidence of if there's vote rigging and all of those things. If you don't want Nigerians to go with their phones or recording devices, then it means that...
phone to the voting if you are voting.
Cubicle.
To the cubicle.
To the cubicle. So if you don't want them to use that, it means that you want to show that there's authenticity in the processes with which you want Nigerians to trust the result that will come out of that place. And the best way to do that is to have simultaneous upload of results from the polling units. not even waiting until you get to the ward level. As results are collected from the polling unit, as enshrined in the law, the Electoral Act 64-5, subsection 4 and 5, it means that they should upload it to the server.
But that's what we have been told.
Yeah.
I mean,
But that's what they did, but they don't do that completely.
Maybe so. Maybe that was what you monitored in Anambra. It's uncertain if that was what also obtained in Ekiti and Osun, because we know that over and over INEC has said, look, we're supposed to, they're going to be uploading this at the polling units. They recognize that it's not at all polling units that there will be network. So they're saying, okay, you can upload it, but whenever it is, wherever it is that you get to and there's network, it might, it will automatically upload. So that's what we have been told over time. Maybe there was, I do not know, I'm not making any excuses for INEC, but maybe Anambra was a peculiar situation.
No, Anambra wasn't a peculiar. I took my time. I saw the report written by Vanguard newspaper. I think Nigerians should go read that and see what really transpired. It was a proper research job done by the journalists in Vanguard newspaper, detailing how this process happened in Anambra. In Osun, we heard the commission saying that they had hackers from even Asia, up to Asia, trying to hack the system to undermine the results, right?
But that is from Asia, not from the
that's it, from Asia. They traced some to Asia, which means some person even locally wanted to hack the results. What they've been doing, they upload results from the polling units to the INEC central server, but not to the viewing portal, the IREF portal. What we want, and which is very sacrosanct for Nigerians to actually demand from INEC, Nigeria is like a baby crying for the mother to carry the baby. Now, the mother cannot be thinking, wishing that I want to pick you up. Baby, relax. You must show signs that you're going to pick that baby up before that baby can keep quiet. What Nigerians are requesting for, which I believe everybody here should be asking for, is that the commission should be able to upload the results simultaneously to the IREF and as much as to the INEC server. The INEC server is a storage device designed in case tomorrow there's any cases that we'll be able to get that, so we can actually do it.
We're winding down now. Let's bring in Mr. Fan on this subject matter. Mr. Fan, so could you talk to us? I mean, the huge question is, from what he says, there will be no need, there should be no need for the RATEX. So the results should be uploaded from the very first stage directly so that Nigerians can also view it simultaneously. As it's being uploaded, they need to see it, not the way it works. For instance, if we're on Zoom, the host will admit you, then tell you to wait before you come on. So at that stage, water could pass under the bridge. So could you tell us, address these concerns for us?
Thank you very much. I think we should be careful not to misinform or disinform the people in such a way that they will lose interest in they will lose confidence in the process. The elections that have been conducted by INEC in the last 2 years have shown clearly how this process works. The truth is that the election would be won and lost at the polling units, nowhere else. We've passed the stage where politicians waited until collation to try to manipulate and falsify results. So what happens is that at every polling unit, at the end of voting, the votes would be counted and results entered in the result sheet from EC8A there. Copies of that result sheet would be given to the agents of the political parties there. So they have their own copies. And then a snapshot of the original page is taken with the beavers. That is what is uploaded. Now, what the RATEC does, like he said, to validate that, is at the point when, because when you finish taking this result would still be taken physically to the ward collation level. At the ward collation level, what the ward collation officer and the RATEC need to confirm first is that the beavers, they check the number of persons who were accredited in that polling unit because it shows in the beavers, and confirm that that figure has not changed from the results that you've also uploaded. It's at that point that that result would now be enabled for people to view on the portal. There is no way you can change the results after it has been taken at the polling unit and a snapshot of it is taken. There's also a copy of the result sheet that is the poster size that is pasted at the polling unit there at the end of the election. So members of the public who are there can also take snapshots of that and have the records. And remember that all the political parties in the election would have agents at each of the polling units. So what even happens is that at that point, those agents have also transmitted the result they have there to their agents at the ward level, at the local government level, so that they also cross-check with what would appear on the portal. So what you have found in the last few elections conducted by INEC is that by the time the coalition has even started at the ward level, the political parties already know whether they have won or they have lost the election. And that has reduced the tensions that we have had in the elections. If you also notice, most of the challenges to the election, the elections that we've conducted in the last couple of years using this method, the challenges to the election have been on technical issues, whether the candidate was validly nominated, whether he or she was qualified in terms of age or academic qualification, or he falsified some information. Hardly would you hear the people contest the outcome, the result that was released. This is because the process has been perfected from what it used to be. So once you have lost the election at the polling unit, you know that you've lost it.
All right. Well, Mr. Farr, you know, even Kenya, when they did their elections, if you're using it not even for the first time, we are using it generally for the first time, but they had challenges too. So when you say this cannot happen, there are questions concerning that, because we saw what transpired in Anambra, of which INEC says, yes, we intend to improve on a regular basis. But this by no means ends this conversation. But yes, we'll have to let it go at this point for this segment. Not to worry. You can send us your questions, concerns. I believe civil society, media will pick up on this further moving forward. But we have to thank you, Mr. Oboifan, Resident Electoral Commissioner for INEC, NLB Convener, Situation Room, and Country Director, Action Aid, as well as Mr. Kevin Fineface, who is a cybersecurity analyst. Gentlemen, ladies, gentlemen, thank you very much indeed for your time today. We will be back in just a moment. Of course, we'll be talking about elections still. Stay with us. All right, welcome back. Yes, Mr. Daniel Bola joins us next. He is the spokesperson at Atiku Okawa presidential campaign. Good morning. Thank you for coming on today.
Thank you. Good morning.
Well, the comments coming through from the River State governor, right. I think we may need to listen. I know you heard it, but the debates where quite a lot really going on time and again. You know, you see different persons coming through, and it just keeps giving that impression that he's not tagging along with the policy or the objective of the campaign, right. Because the latest one happens to be him taking a swipe at the presidential candidate of the PDP, saying, look, in his time, he was the one who did tell the sitting president to stand down. So suggesting that, well, now, the same thing happening about them putting their foot down concerning the emergence of the candidate. So this doesn't definitely leave a good signal for the party. And it keeps coming up. How is the party handling this now?
Well, thank you for having me, and good evening, good morning to your viewers. I can't wait to see evening. You know, so what we do is, if you look at the pattern of interventions of Governor Wike, it is becoming clearer to the average man that he shifts goalposts. At first, it was the presidential candidate that was the problem. At other times, no, not the presidential candidate, but the chairman of the party. Then at other times, no, not these people. Other sets of stakeholders in the party are the ones responsible for the problem. Then he will reverse it again and come back to the presidential candidate. There is virtually, I personally monitor that, not a single commissioning on which Atiku was not a subject of conversation. I mean, you are commissioning a project. You are not having a party stakeholders meeting where you bring up things that have to do with crisis, so to speak, crisis in the party. So it is becoming apparent even to, I was asked by a journalist, not associated with our party, just a journalist. He said, what Wike is doing, is it pursuing an ambition or the actual crisis that is meant to be? So, for example, what you call the G5 or the Gala 5, somebody says the Gala Night or Gala 5. If you look at the agitation and the complaint...
the integrity group. They've finally given a name. Maybe
we all have to go and check what integrity means, because I tried to look at dictionary, Oxford Dictionary, Oxford Advanced Learners Encyclopedia. I just tried to find out a word or definition of that integrity that correlates with what they are doing. But to the best of my knowledge, integrity is patriotism. Integrity is forthrightness. Integrity is sticking to what you say you're doing. Integrity is loyalty. These are some of the concepts that I believe portrays or demonstrates or explains what someone means by integrity. But I think if what he meant by integrity is the fact that they are agitating, I think it is clear now that Wike is pursuing his ambition and not what he claimed to be equity, fairness, and justice. And I can tell you that from every angle you look at it, his message is the opposite of his practice. So, for example, he is an Ikwere man. He took over from an Ikwere person. His chief of staff is Ikwere. The vice chancellor is Ikwere. The rector, Ikwere. And if you look at even the recruitment process...
Of what? The River State government is not a university.
I say the vice chancellor is Ikwere man. The rector of their polytechnic is an Ikwere man. There is polytechnic have rector, not vice chancellor.
I understand that, but that's not government.
No, but what I'm saying, who appoints? The governor.
The point I'm trying to make, I mean, is that this is not how government is distributed.
Yes, so that's you are making my point now, that if you say equity, fairness, and justice should reflect distribution of position, distribution of wealth.
By that, I mean that, you know, if you're talking about government positions, the governor is an Ikwere man. Where's his deputy governor from? Where's the speaker from? Where's the chief judge of the River State
I get your point.
I'm talking about
so the chief judge
positions.
Oh, I see.
I'm not talking about
the chief judge is an Ikwere man. So you come to the party because his complaint has been around party, right? So he is complaining about the fact that Atiku is from the north and Iyocha is from the north. But his governorship candidate is from the same senatorial district, which is the chairman of the party in that state. And you can extend that...
The chairman of the party is from what senatorial district?
The same senatorial district where the governorship candidate is from. So I don't know what the name is, but they come from the same senatorial district. Let me say it again for clarification. The governorship candidate of River and the chairman of the party in Rivers are both from the same senatorial district. And you can take that and apply it to virtually every facet of what he says, whether within or outside. Now, now he's talking about, okay, I'll provide logistics to Peter Obi, right? Now, if you are a crusader, you are an evangelist of fairness and equity, Peter Obi is an Igbo man from the south. The national chairman of Labour, I assume, presumably is Igbo, also from the south. If you go to NNPP, it's virtually the same. So what is the definition of integrity or the equity and fairness?
Yeah, but should the same thing be for the PDP? Because your principal says he is a unifier.
Correct.
So the narrative, the expectation, the yardstick should be completely different for him.
So from our own point of view, and I believe that we've had this conversation over and over in virtually all media houses as to how we come about where we are, right? The chairman of the party before now was from the south, Secondus, from the same state, in fact, with the governor. He removed him. People believe he did that because he had the ambition to run for presidency. And it won't be nice for the two of them to be in the same party. So if you look at the pattern is about self rather than about the collective interest. In any case, some of our elders who are supporting his cause and they say we agree with him, we're fighting for his cause, some of them chaired the position where they had to make a recommendation for zoning. And they were the ones that threw it open. Then Atiku went into it. Atiku emerged as the candidate. You participated in the primary. There's this thing that's in equity. They said equity aids the vigilant and not the indolent. And that you cannot participate in a process. After you lose, then you now question the process like you are in the Premier League. You participate in all the Premier League matches. At the end of the day, they say, my Chelsea won the league, and you said that it is
there's something that's also making the rounds now, because we need to verify if it's true, that some legal papers flying around asking that they disqualify Atiku Abubakar,
Right.
because he didn't emerge right, he should go to the south. Is there any, have you seen that?
Yes,
Is there any truth to that?
yesterday in the evening, I saw it Friday in a social media platform, one of the WhatsApp platforms that I happen to belong to, and I read through. And to be fair with you and honest, the content of the summons are just the reflections of what Wike has been saying in all his commissioning. The fact, because the entire essence of the suit is that Atiku should be disqualified because the party ought to have zoned the presidency to the south, and that Wike, who came second, but he comes from the south, should be declared as the winner. I don't know who that person that filed or who is sponsoring the filing, but they know why they are doing that, and they know that
Has the
it does
party
not
been
have any
served
basis.
with this? Is your party aware of this?
Not to my knowledge. I doubt if they have been, because from I saw in the platform there was a chart that accompanied that papers, and I think the people were still at that preliminary stage where you have to get an order of court for substituted service, and then you go ahead to serve. So if what I read in that platform is the state of things, then I don't think the party has been served. But you see, this is mere distraction, so to speak. All of this, I will provide logistics to...
So is your party underestimating it by calling it a distraction?
Yeah, we already know that it's dead on arrival. But beyond that, we are saying that if you say that you are providing logistics, for example, for Peter Obi, whom you chased out of the party, you're providing logistics to Kwamkoso.
Was it him that chased him out of the party? The emergency was I used to say for sure that he was the one who chased him out.
Okay, I'll give you an instance. Because at the time there was an agitation by elders of the party from the southeast that the power should be zoned. And I recall Atiku Abubakar even had a conversation where he said, if we're talking about zoning, then the two zones that should benefit is either the southeast or northeast. And that if it was zoned to the southeast, he was never going to run, right? So remember, Wike has always been saying he's not an Igbo, even though some people say he is, right? So because of that, if it was zoned to the southeast, he's shut out. He can't run for president. And therefore, this idea of Peter Obi, who has participated in 2019 as vice presidential candidate, if it was zoned, he's going to emerge. Now, there was a time in your program I said Chris Uba was used to chase him out. Last week or 2 weeks ago, I met with Chris Uba finally. I was driving, and he drove and then, signaled me to pull over, and he narrated to me, he confirmed to me some of the things that I'm saying.
So what did your principal do to bring Peter Obi back, or to prevent him from leaving, if you knew that Wike was chasing him out, as you assume?
I believe for a fact, and you can find that out from Peter Obi, our principal has tried to get him to stay, but I think Peter Obi on one occasion...
Was it not too late when he tried, or at what point did he try?
I think that, first of all, when he said he was going to run, he encouraged him, right? But within the party. But I think I've had Peter Obi granting an interview where he said, when he was asked, but did you tell your principal, Atiku Abubakar, that ran with you, that you were leaving? He said, no, I didn't, because it was a decision I made that I wasn't going to turn back from. And if I told him, probably he would have convinced me otherwise. So I left, and then 4 days later, after I declared, I contacted him. It is his right to run. I mean, nobody can stand against the exercise of right. But the point we're saying is, all the hula baloo and the hoopla around Peter, Wike is this, Wike is that. I want to ask you, and by extension, the Nigerian people, from when he started his campaign of we will not support until this is done, until this is done, he has not been able to expand beyond the nucleus that he has always had. If the party is in problem, that would have expanded to find more people agreeing with his cause and pursuing him. In this democratic dispensation, I'm telling you, arguably...
But you said he wants to be part of that team.
Ebonyi
governor.
Yeah, Ebonyi is from APC, right? And first, who chased Ebonyi governor out of the party? Who chased Ben Ayede of Cross River out of the party? I mean, what I'm saying is not an assertion, because it was all over the news. People analyzed. When they were having back and forth in interview, Ebonyi will grant interview to channels. He will state his position. Peter Obi will do his own. And like I said, Wike will do his own and attack him. Intriguing enough, these same people that he chased out are now back into the party when he calls them for commissioning. And they act like these realities never existed in the first place.
Back into which party?
I mean, when they came back for commissioning, so he will try to reinvent the wheel, right? Try to reenact
Some
history.
people will say that, perhaps the reason why these people are willing to, still visit him, and because don't forget that there had been previous visits.
Right.
The former governor, Peter Obi, who is currently running as presidential candidate of the Labour Party, it was not his first time in River State. 2 days ago, he had been to River State a number of times, even after he had declared on the platform of the Labour Party, before, he was even invited to officially commission anything, by the governor of River State. So there'll be questions as to whether those people felt hard done by Wiki, as opposed to how he and the other governors feel about how the party has gone about not just the primaries, but promises that were made to them, not just by the presidential candidate, but even by the party itself, by other members of the party, and how the party has gone about fulfilling these promises.
The party has been consistent. The party consists of organs, right? You know the processes that led to where we are, NWC meeting, NEC meeting. This is party. Party is bigger than one person. But with respect to the individuals that used to visit him for commissioning, Mark Bay, if Peter Obi, if Governor Wiki invites you to commission a project, it will take God and the Holy Spirit for you to say no. And I say no more.
Well, when we'll get to that bridge, we'll cross it. Let's bring in our guys from Lagos. They've got questions, so you go ahead, guys.
Well, I'm going to be crossing that bridge right now. Thank you, Chamberlain. Well, Mr. Boala, I'd like you to speak to one of the points raised earlier by Chamberlain. It was sort of not responded to by you, and it concerns Governor Wike's account of what played out in 2015 when the sitting president, Goodluck Jonathan at that time, and the candidate of the PDP was said to have visited your presidential candidate at that time, seeking his support, and he was said to have told the president, the sitting president at that time, to relinquish his ticket if he wanted his support. And Governor Wike even stopped short of saying that, that was selfish, and they aren't even being selfish right now. They're not asking him to relinquish his ticket. All they are calling for, which they said they have been consistent with, is the removal, or at least the stepping down of the chairman, such that a southerner can take that position. So I'd like you to speak to that particularly, what transpired then, because the view now is that what your candidate did then was a bit, below the belt.
Yeah, Mr. Kayode, what he said is what I think even in English they say whether reported speech. In law we call it hearsay. It was a situation he said that occurred at Dorchester in London. I was not there. There is no video footage. There was no press statement. The only person that can verify what he said is either the Goodluck Jonathan, President Goodluck Jonathan of Atiku, and he did not even allude to the fact that he was there. So he too was reporting. But above all, Mr. Kayode, that was 2015. Why has this never been an issue with him up to the time he participated in the primaries and is coming just now? Because every day you go fishing. You fish for something to do. You may need to ask him, when was the last time he visited Goodluck Jonathan? Goodluck Jonathan had his birthday a few days ago. I didn't see Governor Wike there. Has he been connecting with him? You see, you can pick up anything to make an issue, a mountain out of a molehill. But anybody who is a bystander or somebody who is neutral and looks at what he is saying will wonder why the conversation now and not then, why it didn't occur during the time of the primaries. Why now? And why the motive behind what you're saying? Are you looking to see how you can poison the heart of the base of Jonathan not to support the party? Because one fact is clear, Mr. Kayode, from what we are saying, because we too, our ears are in the street, our party is poised to win this election. Wike's non-participation might affect a little bit of the margin. So if we are supposed to win, let's say with 9 million votes or 8 million votes, and that may reduce to 6 million votes or something like that. But this victory is destined by God. And I can tell you that there can be conspiracy, there can be collaboration, there can be anything. We know Electoral Amendment Act and what it brings. We saw it in Osun. We have some members of our party even walk against the party in that state. But what happened? The dancing senator danced his way to victory because the people spoke and the voices of the people, was heard. And this is how we are going to be looking at this election.
Well, Mr. Boala,
the bigger picture is what we are confronting.
Right.
You have not seen the multi-dimensional poverty index?
Pardon me, I just wanted to be clear, so what your position is on that. You're saying that maybe Governor Wike's account is false, is not really what transpired, or that, I mean, you wait to hear from your principal. I wonder if you think that your principal will have to speak to this. But if it turns out, just saying that Governor Wike's account is indeed what transpired, I mean, would you then say that your principal at that time was maybe being unfair, selfish, as Governor Wike stopped short of saying, to have made that kind of demand at that time?
You know, you only make comment on, you don't make comment on hypothesis, you make comment on real issues. The court does not determine academic issues, they determine live issues. What he's saying is academic, it's not live issue. In any case, you must have come across a footage, either picture or video, where President Goodluck Jonathan himself, when he was visited by the vice presidential candidate, Governor Okowa, and he addressed Governor Okowa as the incoming vice president of the Republic, of the Federal Republic. So there is this thing in law, we say we've gone past that stage. That is the situation here. And I know that for the optics, when they try to take us back, is to try to generate a talking point, and then we start excavating the past when we are looking towards the future. In any case, conduct sometimes determines the state of affairs. And the conduct of President Goodluck Jonathan by that visitation is a conclusive proof that President Goodluck Jonathan is with us. President Goodluck Jonathan has accepted the fact and believed prophetically that we are winning the election, to the point where he was sincerely telling the people that visited him that Governor Okowa was the incoming vice president of the Federal Republic. This is how we move. Yeah.
Well, it's interesting, Mr. Boala, just a second. It's interesting, I mean, that, you know, you made a difference, clear a difference between politics and reality. And sometimes one wonders which one is which. But then speak to one of the questions that I think was Marco Chimeriland asked you earlier about the role your candidate promised to play in unifying Nigeria. Here you are tearing down at members of your party who are not happy with one thing or the other that they consider to be unfair. So if such a thing should happen within Nigeria, will your party take the same position about those who are dissident about the country, as opposed to finding a way to unify everyone, bringing everyone under the same roof or umbrella, as your party logo says? Because it would seem like right now, anyone who is against your candidate is a dissident.
No. As a matter of fact, amongst all the presidential candidates, none has demonstrated by his conduct and operations that he believes in the unity of the country and that he will, in fact, unify the country than Atiku Abubakar. We were in Lagos, I think about a week ago, in our engagement with Lagos Business School. And he said, talking about even the past, how he started the trajectory, he said he is going to form the government of national unity. So it even goes beyond just incorporating all members of our party in this project, but he believes the project Nigeria and the dream of Nigeria includes even going to the extent of bringing members of other political parties to form this government. And he talked about 1999 when they came on board. They did the same. He is top-notch and A-list when it comes to headhunting. Number two, the architecture around his political struggle right now is controlled by the people from the southern Nigeria. And I said that you are an journalist, you can do this investigative journalism. Number three, if you look at his operations in the party, if you look at the talking point, if you look at his agenda, for example, he is the only candidate in whose manifesto you find the unity of Nigeria as a salient point. In fact, he pushed the argument further in the manifesto to say that, in fact, some of the problems of insecurity in the country, bad economy, is because the Nigerian people are not united into a common front and common project. So he stands. Any action to negative that is just a mere exercise in futility.
All right, the PDP, no, the Labour Party chairman, I think is from the South, actually.
Right.
No,
oh, South.
Yeah, and then, I mean, I see people saying, well, Atiku left PDP in 2015. In 2019, he ran on the principle of zoning. In the last PDP convention, the national chairman emerged on principle of zoning. And so they keep wondering, so what changed? So there you go. But I think that's where we'll have to let it go today. The matter is unending. Who knows what twist it will come forth tomorrow. Mr. Daniel Bola is a spokesperson of Atiku Okowa presidential campaign. We do have some emails. I don't know if we have some time to take it, do we? But the first one we've got here is from Festus, who says Nigerians should take voter registration seriously. if they want to vote in our elections and participate in our democracy. Also, INEC must ensure the electoral register for 2023 elections are accurate and complete. No underage Nigerians should be in the register.
Well, Henry Okeke says there are still concerns about voters' registration and validation process and procedures. INEC has a duty to ensure that the integrity of the voters' register is not only ascertainable but updated and verifiable.
Mail from Onoja Onoja on election in Nigeria says politicians who are out for selfish gains are not prepared for free, fair and credible elections. It is the duty of INEC, the courts, security agents to detect and disqualify this group of individuals.
I love the fact that everyone is talking about duties. Henry says, all said, the most critical factor to guarantee the integrity of elections is the human person. Reforming the human mind and body, though Herculean, can be aided by an ultra-nationalistic law enforcement paradigm that will be immune to manipulations from all quarters. As INEC prioritizes technology, let's hold the Commander-in-Chief for impeccable law enforcement and the judiciary for adjudication that will interpret the law as it is, as well as ensure that justice has been done.
All right, that is the show today. Many thanks to everyone for your messages and for letting us be a part of your day today. We will see you again tomorrow. I'm Chamberlain Luso. Thank you for watching. Have a good day.
And I'm Maupe Ogun Yusuf.
Well, this is where we ensure that everyone gets their breakfast. I'm Karaoke Killing.
Well, breakfast served. Go get yours. Amaya Makinde. Have a wonderful day.